Warning: the gel blaster toy shown in this video could be mistaken for a real firearm. Do not take gel blasters into public spaces or it will likely be treated as real by authorities. Gel blasters are classified as toys in Queensland regulations, however this may be different in your state or territory. Be sure to check your local laws before buying or ordering a gel blaster. Also, ensure you use adequate eye protection whenever using gel blasters. Stay safe, everyone.
So welcome back into the studio, boys and girls. What I'm going to do is another short and sweet review coming up with the M97 shotgun pump action gel blaster. The reason why I'm going to do a short and sweet on this is not a full review is a couple. One, timing. I don't want to delay this one any longer because I know a few people are chasing the info. Also, it's getting to the point where it's going to drag out. Mainly weather things, timing, also equipment issues I've had with some of my recording gear, which has been limiting to me, so I'm trying to do it this way. At least that way I get the info out to you, so that way you know whether or not it's worth investing. Now, be warned, at the moment there is a exclusivity deal with Renegade Blasters, so the only place you can get these. However, I believe that's meant to end in July, so other suppliers will probably have them in stock very soon, if not on the way already. So just monitor out for that. If you have a preference on who you buy your blasters through, just be aware that's probably something you'll have to deal with if you're not willing to wait a little while. Most people I've seen tended to get their hands on it by now, so that's alright. What we will do is we will jump straight into it. Now, this one is made by a manufacturer known as Hunke, Hunky, whatever it is, H-A-N-K-E, I believe is the spelling. All in all, apparently it's their first real step into this world. I don't think they're doing too bad, all things considered, but we will continue. So, first thing to note is obviously the body itself is pretty much mostly nylon plastic the whole way through, except for the pump. It's actually very, very ABS plastic and doesn't feel great. You can get replacements for it. It is what it is. Other than that, there is only really this little shrouding, which I'll show you in a bit, which is plastic, and also this rear pin for a sling attachment, which the pin itself is actually metal, but the rest of it is all just plastic as per the rest of it. Now, on the actual end of it, you do get it with this little end muzzle piece with a top iron sights there, and on the bottom for the tube, where the real weapon. Now, you do get two of these, one which is black, like this one you can see here, and one which is red, so if you prefer to run a red tip, these just pull in and go like so. So there's absolutely nothing special about that. They just slot into those places, just there. That's the only real assembly you have to do on these when you first get it. Now, moving further along, the pump does have some ribbing molded into it. It's not real great. It does the job. I mean, it's not anything special. And on the top of the outer barrel, this plastic shrouding looks with some perforations as if it was like a heat shield. Now, absolutely pointless in a blaster, but it does look kind of interesting. So if that's your thing, then you do have that there. Now, along the top, you do have a top rail on the top half of the actual receiver section. You do also get a small rail on the left-hand side of the receiver. It's about 1.5 inches, 2 inches long, maybe. So, just there, you can see that. You also have some markings for Smith & Wesson, which is, always going to be an interesting one when it comes to copyright. And on the right-hand side, you have a whole lot more markings, including a warning and a mock bolt that when you pull back the pump, does slightly pull back and push forward like so. Now, if you ever want a good laugh, I recommend you read this. It's quite amusing. The broken English is hilarious. So, for example, instead of a warning, it's an warning. It's a not a toy. There's no gap there, so that's all one word. Where eye protection to prevent serious injury to the eyes. Rear owners manual before using, again with no spaces. Yeah, so it's interesting, if nothing else. Moving further along, you do have a nice little trigger guard here. The trigger is plastic. It is a little bit flimsy side to side, but it seems to work fine. And then you got the actual hand grip. Now, the hand grip actually looks kind of cool, pistol grip. So if you look at that, that's actually like they put a bit of effort into molding that. Now, it does have a bit of weight to it, and that is where most of the weight is. Turns out there's actually a weight inside the pistol grip itself, so be mindful of that. You can take that out if you want. It's not overall heavy, but some people do, some people don't prefer that. And then you have on the back a pin for some sort of attachment there. You also have a buffer tube screw here. Now this comes with the shotgun blaster. It just screws in and has your sling attachment point. If you completely unthread it, which I'll just quickly do now, I might leave that out for the rest of the review for the sake of argument. Just plastic cap with a metal pin. There's a thread in there for an M4 style buffer tube to thread in place. So if you want to put a stock on it, you can put the buffer tube in, put any M4 based buffer tube stock on top. I've heard that M4SS and Gen 9 buffer tubes sort of work, depending on if they're nylon metal and if they're factory or if they're aftermarket, because some of them are very slightly different in sizing. But that's a rough guide on that. Double check before you go and buy one if it's going to work. I'd love to give you more info, but unfortunately I don't have any spare buffer tubes to test that for certain. Now, to load and utilize the blaster is fairly straightforward. Now, this is pretty simple in reality. There's just a piston, spring, and everything down here. Down here. And when you pull the pump back, you are cocking the spring back to the trigger. You pull the trigger, the thing will fire. So it's very basic. It's fairly straightforward. It's good, which means there shouldn't be any failings, a lot less breakages, that sort of thing, because you're not dealing with electrics, you're not dealing with batteries, none of that. So it is a very basic blaster. However, it is also hopper fed, so this top part of the blaster itself is actually where the hopper is, and it only holds about 10 to 12 gels, depending on the gels you're using and whatnot, so it is very limited. An accessory you can get, which is what I've got here, is a 3D printed DK brand extended hopper. So you can see it just there. That's 3D printed, it just slots straight on, sits over the top of it. To fill it up, you need to pull this back. With this on, it holds it back. And then to fill that extended hopper, you simply push this to the side, fill into there, and it gives you a fairly significant amount of extra ammo capacity. Something to note, when you fill this up, the gels have to fall to the back of the extended hopper before they'll then fall into the normal hopper, which then have to go forward to get into the barrel. So sometimes running around, it might not actually cock. I've noticed that going this a few times because sometimes gels get jammed up in there. It tends to fix it up, so just be mindful of that. You don't have to use a DK 3D printed hopper like I have. I have seen some guys getting around, there's no reason why it wouldn't work, where if you have one of the old hopper fed pistols, you can actually grab the hopper off that, chuck that on, and it'll do the same job. So, I mean, you could probably make your own if you're really that keen on it and you don't really care too much about getting something fancy. I bought this because it's designed to work with it and I wanted to see what it was like. It's not bad. I mean, it does mean you have to look a little higher, but this thing is limited on range anyway, so it's not really that big a deal. That's pretty much it. So it is a very basic blaster in reality. I mean, it's a pump action. It's not going to be anything fancy. It does the job. Like when you think you're ready to use it, you should pull it out, make sure that you've got it somewhat tilted forward, at least level, so the balls actually have a chance to fall in, because the feed tube is in the front end here. Simply pump it back like so, and you're ready to blast. Giggity? Maybe not. Anyway, so yeah, it is fairly straightforward. It is fairly basic. I have used this in a few games. I'm not really going to show you a huge amount of the gameplay. The reason is, in the field that I was playing, it wasn't really suited. It's a CQ Blasters field. It's fairly open there. This does definitely suit closer in range, purely because the accuracy is not great. It's like any blaster, except you're now limited on rate of fire as well. And yeah, like it's very much a close in or closer range weapon. So just be mindful of that. You might be able to get some good use out of it at extended range, but to be honest, I don't necessarily think it's worth it. I think you're going to be missing the point. So, like anything, personal preference is king. So what I might quickly do is I'll set up the chrono, we'll do a chrono test of it, we'll see what it gets on average, and then we'll head outside, do a quick little accuracy test. I'll try and show you some of the gameplay footage as an example of what I used it for, but most of that will probably go into other videos anyway, just for a bit of fun. Other than that, yeah, then we'll get into the last bit. So, alrighty then. So, chrono test on the shotgun. If you do have the extended hopper, you just pop it open like so. Jam some gels in like that. Don't need too many. Doesn't use much ammo this, funnily enough. Make sure that's all loaded up. Yep, we're good to go. Alright, so let's see what we get. Alright, so we're getting a few double shots out there, out of that one. Yeah, going pretty good. So we're averaging all over the shop, if I'm honest. Oh, sorry, going back to the wrong screen there. So they're getting a few high spikes, a few low. I think the low ones are when they're doing multiple shots. The back end ones are going to be going slower than the ones right at the front. So that might be why we're spiking up and down all the time. Not a bad result still. Again, it is somewhat limited on range anyway, so it's not the biggest problem. It's not half bad. Alright, let's head outside.
Got him! Hey Dan, you want to go up close to shotties? Alright, let me just turn this off. Hold up, hold up, hold up. Alright, you ready to go? Yeah guys, we're going to need some covering fire.
Do some cover fire. Alright.
Ready?
Yep.
And go! I got him! Woo! Oh shit! Ah. I'm out. Oh. Yeah. Well, it was on my head.
I'm running back to my zone. Your head. Bang, bang.
Ah, he got me. Got a few. I got the grenade. I'm on you.
Rightio, so I hope that accuracy testing and that little bit of gameplay I showed you and whatnot actually helped you understand the good and bad side of this shotgun blaster. Like, it's definitely not a bad blaster by any means. For what it is, it's pretty cool and it's something different. Quite a few of us have now got them and we're starting to use them in different ways, so just be mindful of that. It's not bad, it's just limited. You've got to understand the limitations of what you're dealing with here. You cannot expect super high rates of fire, super accuracy and super power all the time because it's just not that. So if you go expecting that, you're going to be disappointed. If you want for a bit of fun, something a bit different, maybe to run in specific areas or in a specific way, such as, I wouldn't mind painting this up like the one from Aliens, the second movie, where he sticks it in his plate carrier, that sort of thing, or a back holster. That'd be pretty cool. Like, that sort of stuff, go for it. It'll do the job perfectly fine. And it's not a bad fallback weapon, as long as you're not expecting too much out of it. Simple as that. Otherwise, let me know what you think down below. I'd be very curious to hear your thoughts. I know a lot of people are very excited for this and very keen for them, just because if nothing else, it's something different. It's not another M4 or an AK that keeps breaking. So, it is what it is. Let me know what you think down below. Happy to keep talking about it. If you like the video, feel free to give it a like. If you know someone who might be interested or you might have some thoughts about it, then feel free to share the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you'd like to support the channel, once again, big shout out to my sponsors up on the board there. You can find links to PayPal donation option and also buy me a coffee down below in the description. A couple different options there, both set up for either one-time or monthly payments if that's something that you would like to do. All proceeds go towards the channel, as I've mentioned before. But that's all I've got for you today. I'll catch us next time. There is just something really satisfying about pumping this thing. I don't care. I like it.
Suit is on point. Won't cut cause a scene or stir up no clash. On second thought, Venice by fourth. She's on the job, but she's staying on.